growth estimates based on the latest available data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.6% over the 12 months ending in July. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.9%, above their level of a year ago. Within core, prices of goods increased 1.1% over the past 12 months, a notable shift from the modest decline seen over the course of 2024. In contrast, housing services inflation remains on a downward trend, and non-housing services inflation is still running at a level a bit above what has been historically consistent with a 2% inflation. The effects of tariffs on consumer prices are now clearly visible. We expect those effects to accumulate over coming months with high uncertainty about both timing and amounts. The question that matters for monetary policy is whether these price increases are likely to materially raise the risk of an ongoing inflation problem. A reasonable base case is that the effects will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. Of course, one time does not mean all at once. It will continue to take time for tariff increases to work their way through supply chains and distribution networks. Moreover, tariff rates continue to evolve, potentially prolonging the adjustment process. It's also possible, however, that the upward pressure on prices from tariffs could spur a more lasting inflation dynamic, and that is a risk to be assessed and managed. One possibility is that workers who see their real incomes decline because of higher prices demand and get higher wages from employers, setting off adverse wage price dynamics. Given that the labor market is not particularly tight and faces increasing downside risks, that outcome does not seem likely. Another possibility is that inflation expectations could move up, dragging actual inflation with them. Inflation has been above our target for more than 4 years and remains a prominent concern for households and businesses. Measures of longer-term inflation expectations, however, as reflected in market and survey-based measures, appear to remain well anchored and consistent with our longer-run inflation objective of 2%. Of course, we cannot take the stability of inflation expectations for granted. Come what may, we will not allow a one-time increase in the price level to become an ongoing inflation problem. So, putting the pieces together, what are the implications for monetary policy? In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate. Our policy rate is now 100 basis points closer to neutral than it was a year ago, and the stability of the unemployment rate and other labor market measures allows us to proceed carefully as we consider changes to our policy stance. Nonetheless, with policy in restrictive territory, the baseline outlook and the shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance. Monetary policy is not on a preset course. FOMC members will make these decisions based solely on their assessment of the data and its implications for the economic outlook and the balance of risks. We will never deviate from that approach. So, turning then to my second topic. Our monetary policy framework is built on the unchanging foundation of our mandate from Congress to foster maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. We remain fully committed to fulfilling our statutory mandate, and the revisions to our framework will support that mission across a broad range of economic conditions. Our revised statement on longer-run goals and monetary policy strategy, which we refer to as our consensus statement to save time, describes how we pursue our dual mandate goals. It is designed to give the public a clear sense of how we think about monetary policy, and that understanding is important both for transparency and accountability, and for making monetary policy more effective. This year's review included 3 elements: Fed Listens events at reserve banks around the country, a flagship research conference, and policymaker discussions and deliberations supported by staff analysis at a series of FOMC meetings. In approaching this year's review, a key objective has been to make sure that our framework is suitable across a broad range of economic conditions. At the same time, the framework needs to evolve with changes in the structure of the economy and our understanding of those changes. The Great Depression presented different challenges from those of the Great Inflation and the Great Moderation, which in turn are different from the ones we face today. At the time of the last review, we were living in a new normal, characterized by the proximity of interest rates to the effective lower bound, or ELB, along with low growth, low inflation, and a very flat Phillips curve, meaning that inflation was not very responsive to slack in the economy. To me, a statistic that captures that era is that our policy rate was stuck at the ELB for 7 long years following the onset of the global financial crisis in late 2008. Many here will recall the sluggish growth and painfully slow recovery of that era. It appeared highly likely that if the economy experienced even a mild downturn, our policy rate would be back at the ELB very quickly, probably for another extended period. Inflation and inflation expectations could then decline in a weak economy, raising real interest rates as nominal rates were pinned near zero. Higher real rates would further weigh on job growth and reinforce the downward pressure on inflation and inflation expectations, triggering an adverse dynamic. The economic conditions that brought the policy rate to the ELB and drove the 2020 framework changes were thought to be rooted in slow-moving global factors that would persist for an extended period. And they might well have done so, if not for the pandemic. The 2020 consensus statement included several features that addressed the ELB-related risks that had become increasingly prominent over the preceding 2 decades. We emphasized the importance of anchored inflation, longer-term inflation expectations to support both our price stability and maximum employment goals. Drawing on an extensive literature on strategies to mitigate risks associated with the ELB, we adopted flexible average inflation targeting, a make-up strategy to ensure that inflation expectations would remain well anchored even with the ELB constraint. In particular, we said that following periods when inflation had been running persistently above 2%, appropriate monetary policy would likely aim to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. In the event, rather than low inflation in the ELB, the post-pandemic reopening brought the highest inflation in 40 years to economies around the world. Like most other central banks and private sector analysts, through year-end 2021, we thought that inflation would subside fairly quickly without a sharp tightening in our policy stance, as this slide will show. When it became clear this was not the case, we responded forcefully, raising our policy rate by 5.25 percentage points over 16 months. That action, combined with the unwinding of pandemic supply disruptions, contributed to inflation moving much closer to our target without the painful rise in unemployment that has accompanied previous efforts to counter high inflation. This year's review considered how economic conditions have evolved over the past 5 years. During this period, we saw that the inflation situation can change rapidly in the face of large shocks. In addition, interest rates are now substantially higher than was the case during the era between the global ELB, may have complicated communications about our response to high inflation. We concluded that the emphasis on an overly specific set of economic conditions may have led to some confusion, and as a result, we made several important changes to the consensus statement to reflect that insight. First, we removed language indicating that the ELB was a defining feature of the economic landscape. Instead, we noted that our monetary policy strategy is designed to promote maximum employment and stable prices across a broad range of economic conditions. Inflation overshoot had proved irrelevant. There was nothing intentional or moderate about the inflation that arrived a few months after we announced our 2020 changes to the consensus statement, as I acknowledged publicly in 2021. Well-anchored inflation expectations were critical to our success in bringing down inflation without a sharp increase in unemployment. Anchored expectations promote the return of inflation to target when adverse shocks drive inflation higher and limit the risk of deflation when the economy weakens. Further, they allow monetary policy to support maximum employment in economic downturns without compromising price stability. Our revised statement emphasizes our commitment to act forcefully to ensure that longer-term inflation expectations remain well anchored to the benefit of both sides of our dual mandate. It also notes that price stability is essential for a sound and stable economy and supports the well-being of all Americans. This theme came through loud and clear at our Fed Listens events. The past 5 years have been a painful reminder of the hardship that high inflation imposes, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of necessities. Third, our 2020 statement said that we would mitigate shortfalls rather than deviations from maximum employment. The use of shortfalls reflected the insight that our real-time assessments of the natural rate of unemployment, and hence of maximum employment, are highly uncertain. The later years of the post-global financial crisis recovery featured employment running for an extended period above mainstream estimates of its sustainable level, along with inflation running persistently below our 2% target. In the absence of inflationary pressures, it might not be necessary to tighten policy based solely on uncertain real-time estimates of the natural rate of unemployment. We still have that view, but our use of the term shortfalls was not always interpreted as intended, raising communications challenges. In particular, the use of shortfalls was not intended as a commitment to permanently forswear preemption or to ignore labor market tightness. Accordingly, we removed shortfalls from our statement. Instead, the revised document now states more precisely that the committee recognizes that employment may run at times above real-time assessments of maximum employment, on promoting a strong labor market underscores the principle that durably achieving maximum employment fosters broad-based economic opportunities and benefits for all Americans. The feedback we received at Fed Listens events reinforced the value of a strong labor market for American households, employers, and communities. Fourth, consistent with the removal of shortfalls, we made changes to clarify our approach in periods where our employment and inflation objectives are not complementary. In those circumstances, we will follow a balanced approach in promoting them. The revised statement now more closely aligns with the original 2012 language. We take into account the extent of departures from our goals and the potentially different time horizons over which each is projected to return to a level consistent with our dual mandate. These principles guide our policy decisions today, as they did in the 2022 to 24 period, when the departure from our 2% inflation target was the overriding concern. In addition to these changes, there is a great deal of continuity with past statements. The document continues to explain how we interpret the mandate Congress has given us and describes the policy framework that we believe will best promote maximum employment and price stability. We continue to believe that monetary policy must be forward-looking and consider the lags in its effects on the economy. For this reason, our policy actions depend on the economic outlook and the balance of risks to that outlook. We continue to believe that setting a numerical goal for employment is unwise because the maximum level of employment is not directly measurable and changes over time for reasons unrelated to monetary policy. We also continue to view a longer-run inflation rate of 2% as most consistent with our dual mandate goals. We believe that our commitment to this target is a key factor, helping keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Experience has shown that 2% inflation is low enough to ensure that inflation is not a concern in household and business decision-making, while also providing a central bank with some policy flexibility to provide accommodation during economic downturns. Finally, the revised consensus statement retained our commitment to conduct a public review roughly every 5 years. There's nothing magic about the 5-year pace. That frequency allows policymakers to reassess structural features of the economy and to engage with the public, practitioners, and academics on the performance of our framework. It is also consistent with several global peers. To wrap up, I want to thank President Schmid and all of his great Kansas City staff who work so diligently to host this outstanding event annually, counting a couple of virtual appearances during the pandemic. This is the 8th time I've had the honor to speak from this podium. Each year, this symposium offers the opportunity for Fed leaders to hear ideas from leading economic thinkers and focus on the challenges we face. The Kansas City Fed was very wise to lure Chair Volcker here to this national park more than 40 years ago and I am so proud to be part of that tradition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll move into the presentations. So I want to allow a minute for all of the members of the press to go.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creativity.
I think that increasingly we live in a global economy where the cross currents that are impacting, the economic dynamics are very complex. These are dynamics.
That's commonly cited as the yield curve, right? The yield curve inversion. When the yield curve tends to invert, it means that people expect that the bond market expects interest rates to be higher in the short term than it does in the long term. That's because the Federal Reserve hikes rates to control inflation, and then after inflation is controlled, it cuts interest rates back down. So if you see that the market expects high interest rates in the short term and low interest rates in the long term, that's indicative that a recession is coming, followed by an interest rate cutting cycle.
A lot of people look at some of the manufacturing indices, like the ISM Manufacturing Index. When it tends to be above 50, means that the economy is expanding. But when the ISM starts decelerating and approaches 50, a lot of people say, okay, the manufacturing side of the economy is going to contract, that could be a recession indicator. Third recession indicator that a lot of people look at is consumer confidence, and suggest that, well, if consumer sentiment and consumer confidence goes negative, that means consumers are going to pull in, take the credit cards away, and not spend, and that could cause a contraction in the economy.
A diverse portfolio can often provide the best defense.
Diversify your holdings of assets to make sure that you're including not only growth stocks, but more value stocks and more defensive stocks.
Like healthcare, like the utilities market. These are the companies that could manage through this process a little more effectively than some of the hyper growth firms that are leveraging the credit market more so than maybe a company with a ton of free cash flow and really strong balance sheets. And that's why I think there can be some value in recessions, not too deep and not too long, but in scenarios where we are overheating, assets have gotten way out of whack, and we need to get to a point where they get back to fair value.
It also creates opportunities to be a stock picker. It's very hard, to buy stocks in a bull market, but very often recessions and the bear markets that come with it create brief opportunities to really reload your portfolio, to buy the stocks that you've wanted to own, essentially at sale prices.
But whether recessions are actually good for the economy remains widely debated.
Look, recessions are very healthy things for the economy because ultimately recessions flush out excesses. So you think about it, when we have a recession, it reduces whatever extreme bubbles may have built up.
I think that's ridiculous. This notion that somehow we need to cleanse the system and a recession is a cleansing thing. It's like saying everybody should have a heart attack once in a while because it'll make them eat better and exercise more. It's just not true.
Recessions cause job loss, and every job loss is enormously unfortunate. Becoming unemployed is enormously disruptive to people's lives. It causes enormous pain for families, for households, for communities. It's terrible.
For Americans, understanding how recession works can best help them prepare for whatever may lie ahead.
Understanding, the dynamics of a recession allow you to potentially be more opportunistic and protective of your wealth, should these downturns happen. Knowing that it may be coming, can help you think through decisions about, do you want to buy a house or do you want to rent? Do you want to take a new job or do you want to, maybe wait? Because the job market, may soften up. These are all things that if you possess the knowledge of the business cycle, can help you manage your financial life in a much better way.
Ready?
Parents across the U.S. are scrambling to find baby formula. Empty store shelves, higher prices, and retailers limiting sales have made anxious parents even more nervous about their kids' health.
You get this sick feeling in the pit of your stomach because we had a can that had been recalled and it was empty. We had just finished it and, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, what have I given my child?
Abbott, the nation's biggest infant formula maker, recalled several products and shut down its Michigan manufacturing plant in February after bacteria was found at the site. 4 infants who consumed formula produced at the facility got sick with an infection. 2 of those infants died.
The current formula shortage has real consequences. Babies and children are suffering. Parents are nervous wrecks trying to get this. I've heard stories from pediatricians who have seen malnourished children.
It's kind of like a perfect storm of so many terrible things happening. And number one, it should never have happened in the first place, and we could have absolutely prevented it.
By early May, 40% of baby formula in the U.S. was out of stock, and the problem has continued. And it wasn't just a factory shutdown that led to the crisis. America's strict formula import regulations and a nutritional program for low-income families may have contributed to the disaster. But some signs of progress suggest the crisis could be easing. In June, Abbott reopened its Michigan facility, and that same month, a 5th flight carrying baby formula from abroad arrived in the U.S. So what led to the baby formula crisis in the U.S. in the first place? And how can the nation avoid this happening again? Amy Dolan and her husband Brian live in Flanders, New Jersey with their 3 kids. A milk protein allergy means their youngest son Connor requires specialized formula.
We had to do a little running around, but we were able to get a prescription, find a pharmacy, and thought everything was great. We were getting deliveries of our formula, and Connor was doing well on it.
But that changed after baby food manufacturer Abbott recalled several of its products and closed its plant in Sturgis, Michigan. Up to 25% of the nation's baby formula came from that facility. The Dolans had 16 cans of formula in their pantry at the time, 14 of which were recalled, including one they had just finished.
I was scared out of my mind. You had seen that the recall was because there were several babies who had gotten pretty sick, and I didn't want our baby to get sick.
It also meant the couple, along with countless other parents, had to scramble to find a replacement as stores nationwide began running out of formula.
A friend of mine walked in, and I said, they're supposed to be right here, and there was nothing. And I called Brian and I said, there's no formula. Our formula's not there. I don't know what to do.
Shopping online proved problematic as well, with shipping delays, limited supplies, and price gouging on some websites.
You'd see out of stock, not available, estimated shipping 8, 10, 12 weeks away.
So online, we were sort of watching it go up, and it went from about $45 a can to about $85, $87 a can. We found one night that was 4 cans for $500.
Enlisting family and friends, the couple went on a nationwide search for baby formula.
And we finally found 2 cans in Newark, Delaware.
It was Bye Bye Baby, and it was in Delaware, and they had 2 cans, and that was the last cans they had. And I said, would you hold them? And I said, I'll leave right now. It'll take me a couple hours to get down there, and drove, just over 2 hours to get down there to pick up the 2 cans and drove the 2 hours back.
And although the couple has managed to keep a supply of formula at home, they have formed contingency plans. And those plans might come in handy. It could be the end of July before store shelves are filled with baby formula again, according to FDA Commissioner Robert Califf. In the meantime, experts advise parents facing a shortage to consider using a store-brand generic formula, switching from a milk-based formula to a different variety, like a soy-based formula if possible. And do not make your own formula or dilute your baby's formula by adding water.
I worry about everything now. I worry about if I run out of formula, will I have enough different foods to give him that'll give him enough protein and give him enough of what he needs.
Carla, do you want to go down again?
One more time? Say one more time. Ah! Ready?
Driven by an increase in working women, the U.S. baby formula market is expected to reach $5.8 billion in 2027, almost 60% higher than in 2019.
A few companies dominate the market. There's Illinois-based Abbott, Chicago-based Mead Johnson Nutrition, which is a division of Reckitt, and Swiss company Nestle makes Gerber products. Perrigo manufactures store-brand formulas for retailers like Target and Walmart.
Because baby formula is a sole source of nutrition for a vulnerable population, the market is highly regulated by the FDA, which sets rules for everything from nutrient requirements to packaging, labeling, and production. In a House committee hearing on formula safety, the FDA faced sharp criticism for its slow response in investigating the crisis at Abbott's Michigan plant.
The FDA didn't act decisively until parents and the media coverage forced them to move publicly. FDA failed to react promptly to the warning signs it was getting about the Abbott nutrition plant.
Frankly, the inspection results were shocking. Standing water, cracks in the key equipment that present the potential for bacterial contamination to persist, leaks in the roof, a previous citation for inadequate hand washing, and current poor foot sanitation, bacteria growing from multiple sites, and many signs of a disappointing lack of attention to the culture of safety.
CNBC reached out to Abbott, but they declined our request for an interview. To ease nationwide shortages, President Biden invoked the Defense Production Act, requiring companies to prioritize the allocation of baby food ingredients. The FDA relaxed regulations on imports from abroad, including Britain.
At the same time, manufacturers ramped up production, and a military cargo flight shipped infant formula from Europe.
But with parents still struggling to find formula, many experts say those efforts aren't enough, and the baby food crisis that has been brewing for years may have been preventable.
On the one side, you had people stopped having babies during the pandemic, and so that really caused demand predictions and forecasts to change for the sector. Then, as things lightened up, people started having babies again.
Formula makers have also faced a laundry list of pandemic-era supply chain issues, including labor, trucking, and packaging. Shortages, in turn, led to hoarding by some parents.
Being a parent who had a child on formula myself, I can tell you, when those shelves get a little bare, you buy extra.
And America's regulatory and trade policy may be to blame, too. About 98% of baby formula consumed in the U.S.
首先，我们所有的课程材料不要求大家会英文，就是我们的课程是按照线下传统的硕士项目训练的这个标准，但是我们将其中英文的部分大部分翻译成了中文，或者使用中文讲解的方式，教学视频的方式帮助大家理解。我们在线上项目里边每一门课每个周会安排线上的这个 office hour， 大家可以有机会跟教授面对面的去交流自己的问题。另外我们 ASU Library 我们的图书馆资源有很丰富的中英文数据库的相关资源。另外我们定期也会组织一些线上的讲座。
In 2007, California, which has the largest number of WIC participants, switched its contract brand from Abbott to Mead Johnson. Abbott's market share plummeted from 90% to 5%. Mead Johnson's market share had the opposite effect, increasing from about 5% to 95%. And market concentration has proved to be devastating when problems arise.
So when Abbott's facility gets shut down, when Abbott recalls a lot of product, Well, that causes WIC consumers to scramble for non-WIC product as the USDA issues waivers to do that. But it also just punches a giant hole in the US market.
In 2015, for example, Abbott was the sole source WIC provider in 23 states and the District of Columbia, followed by Mead Johnson in 18 states and Gerber in 9 states.
You know, it's inhumane for a government system to be created where we're reliant on the government to give a certain population product to feed their babies, and then for the system to fail them. That's not right.
Critics say that concentration has also hampered innovation. But that may be starting to change. Several brands have launched in recent years, including direct-to-consumer brands like Bobby, who works with manufacturer Perrigo, and ByHeart. Launched in March 2022, ByHeart is the first new infant formula manufacturer to be registered with the FDA in over 15 years. Both companies are not accepting new customers as of early June. ByHeart claims its cleaner ingredients help it get closer to breast milk than other brands with a recipe that doesn't contain corn syrup, gluten, GMO, or palm oil.
Product innovation has been stifled really at the expense of families. What ByHeart elected to do was really build entirely from the ground up, to acquire our manufacturing in Reading, Pennsylvania, and build our supply chain from farm to formula, which allows us to continue to innovate beyond the industry standard.
While the company says it currently supports thousands of babies, new investments could help it feed up to 500,000 babies annually, or roughly 14% of new births each year.
But there needs to be more manufacturers and innovators so that we never find ourselves again in the position where parents are so vastly underserved and undersupported.
Increased competition would be welcome news for stressed out parents, too, who crave more options as they seek to better care for their children.
This is all a baby eats for their first few months, and I never thought I'd have to worry that the formula wasn't safe or that there could be a problem.
In 2021, over 360,000 people left California in what many are calling the California Exodus, leaving for states like Texas, Arizona, and Washington. But a rising number of them are migrating out of the country altogether and instead heading south of the border. Today, more and more Americans are leaving the hustle and bustle of California for a relaxed, more affordable lifestyle in Mexico.
We were able to cut our budget in half, which allowed us to really focus on our careers and the things we wanted to do artistically without having to just like hustle and hustle and hustle every day, every week, every month to just meet the bare minimum.
California's population growth has been declining for over 30 years now. But thanks to the rise in remote work due to the COVID-19 pandemic, those trends have accelerated. The ability to work anywhere has 62% of Americans considering moving to a new country.
What's the options, right? What, Kansas, Utah, whatever. I mean, really, it's the options aren't that great. I mean, especially if you're from California.
And while some Californians are able to make the move by working remotely, others are living in Mexico, but still commuting to work daily in California.
There's a lot of people commuting who actually live in Mexico, who actually work in the States. So it's thousands and thousands of people just crossing daily. It's a lot of people.
However, many critics argue that Americans are driving up the cost of housing for locals and pricing them out of the market. So just how long will this migration trend last? And what are the consequences? When it comes to U.S.-Mexico migration, most Mexicans move to the U.S. to improve their lives economically. But a lesser-known fact is that historically, Americans have flocked to Mexico for the same reason. After Mexico won its independence from Spain in 1821, thousands of legal and illegal American immigrants settled into northern Mexico in search of land, trade, and agricultural opportunity. And when Mexico abolished slavery in 1829, a few routes of the Underground Railroad ran south into Mexican Texas, It's estimated that about 5,000 to 10,000 slaves escaped into Mexico. By the mid-1840s, Americans outnumbered Mexican Californios in the northern part of Alta California, which was Mexican territory at the time. Shortly after, the California Gold Rush began, and 30,000 people from all over the world poured into California in search of treasures. Just days after the California Gold Rush began, the Mexican-American War ended, giving California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Nevada, and Utah to the U.S. It wasn't until 1924 that the U.S. Border Patrol was created, and since then, millions of Americans have visited, vacationed, and relocated to Mexico. As of 2020, 800,000 Americans are living in Mexico. These migrants can be divided into 3 categories: retirees, working professionals, and the biggest share of the population, the Mexican Americans returning to their roots.
There's also a parallel migration, of course, from U.S. citizen children that are being returned or that are returning to Mexico with their parents, who many of them are Mexican citizens and are being either repatriated or deported to Mexico as well. These U.S. citizens make up about 2/3 of the U.S. immigrant population in Mexico, and so therefore their futures and the children growing up and integrating into Mexican society is an important factor.
The rising migration of U.S. citizens is giving way to increasing investments and development, which in turn creates opportunity for more Americans to make the move. The rising cost of living is perhaps one of the biggest drivers behind this phenomenon. California ranks number 2 in the country's most expensive states to live in, according to a study by Credit Karma.
For our 1-bedroom apartment in North Hollywood, we were paying $1,600 a month. And that was just for the rent alone. And there we had a car, so that included car insurance and car payment and all of those kinds of things that you have to pay for. And so just the rent alone, we're paying half of that.
We moved in November of 2020, so it was still kind of like in the thick of COVID-19 and the pandemic before the vaccines. So our rent is about $850 a month. Which includes 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a music studio for David. We have a pool and a clubhouse area, 24-hour security with a guard at a gate. Going from a 1-bedroom where we were like on top of each other to having different spaces to work has been like life-changing.
And to do that half of the price was mind-blowing.
Real estate in California is getting more expensive and more competitive. The median price for a home in California is about $800,000. Only 25% of California households could afford that in the fourth quarter of 2021.
Here in Baja, we offer a more affordable alternative, bigger prices, and what a lot of people tend to say is that we have a better quality of life. You know, there's no traffic, there's sunny days, there's beautiful beaches.
Unlike the jobs in California, Mexico's wages are low and labor is cheap. The minimum wage in California is $15 per hour, while the minimum wage in the majority of Mexico is 172 pesos per day, which is equivalent to about $8. For comparison, 1 hour of working in California is equivalent to almost 2 whole work days in Mexico.
We do want to say, like, we understand how lucky and fortunate we are to be able to earn in dollars and spend in pesos. So we do recognize that that's like an incredible privilege, and we feel super grateful to be here and to be able to do that.
Healthcare is another important factor that many consider when moving to Mexico. The U.S. spends much more on healthcare than any other country in the world. But one study showed that overall, its performance and quality ranks last among the highest income countries.
You know, I got dental work and stuff. I mean, Mexico's responsible for saving my teeth.
I went to an allergist in LA and was told I did not have enough money to afford the allergy shots that I actually needed. And that was one of the first appointments I made in Mexico was with an allergist and a dermatologist. And not only can I afford allergy shots here, but like my allergist coordinates with the dermatologist who coordinates with our primary care physician.
Yeah, I had to get hard contacts and braces I felt very cared for, and it was very easy to access these kinds of things that I know I could not get the contacts that I needed because they were so expensive in the States, and we thankfully were able to do that here.
Since the pandemic, migration trends to Mexico have accelerated. COVID-19 has made remote work the new normal, prompting many to move out of big cities and into more affordable ones.
The pandemic really changed the dynamic, but because folks suddenly, the cost of taxes in the U.S., the crime rates, the politics, all the things that people are unhappy with in California are wanting to come down to Mexico and suddenly realizing, gee, I can, as long as I got good internet, I can come to Mexico and live in a condo and stare at the ocean and take care of my work and enjoy a different lifestyle.
This is the U.S.-Mexico border in Tijuana. Every day, about 200,000 people commute between the two countries. Many of them work in California and live just below the border in Baja California due to its proximity. Take Tony Smith, for example. She works in San Diego, but lives 9 miles away in Tijuana.
I still work in the States. I'm a coach over at a community college, and all of my business is in the States. So I commute daily, back and forth.
The wait to get through the border ranges from a few minutes to a few hours. To avoid the longer wait times during rush hour, Tony drops her car off in a parking structure by the border and walks the rest of the way.
On days that are not heavy traffic, I'll drive. And then days where it's really hectic, like the average Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, those are the busy days. I will leave my car and I'll just walk. It's easy getting into Mexico. It's just the difficult part, getting out of Mexico, which can take hours. But I learned if I could just commute by foot, it drops my commute time at least by 2 hours.
Real estate agents in Baja California are also seeing an increase in people looking to buy property who don't necessarily want permanent residency in Mexico.
I would say at least half are probably coming down from California. There's a lot of folks that have second homes down here, vacation homes and or rental properties down here that come from Southern California.
Critics of this migration trend say that Americans are buying or renting property in Mexico at a premium and pricing locals out of the market.
Certain neighborhoods are now becoming too expensive for Mexican citizens to live in because most of the times people that are actually buying these property developments or buying even, say, an apartment are being able to do so because they either make money in US dollars or because they're working remotely.
For those on temporary visas, working remotely allows them to continue paying their taxes to the U.S. without paying any to Mexico. And there are some parts of Mexico known as the Tourist Libre Zone, where visas go unchecked, under the radar. The idea is that Americans who spend their money in Mexico are still contributing to the country's economic growth.
It's just a dog-eat-dog world. And I get why a lot of Mexicans, they want better for their families. So they're trying to get across the border to America while the Americans are doing the total opposite. I feel as though the money that we're bringing in can definitely help build better roads. We're just definitely helping the economy by just bringing in the dollars so that they can put it into, whatever it is that they want to put it into.
It's super important to us to mitigate our economic impact wherever we go, and we try to do that by highlighting local groups and services, small businesses, and we're super conscious of where we spend our money.
Some argue the communities where Americans are moving to are not the same as the ones where locals reside. Those areas have less crime, are more expensive, and tend to be closer to beaches and other tourist attractions.
The foreigners or the Americans are only going to live in certain places. And these places are primarily targeted towards Americans. The local Tijuana people are not going to live in these places. There's high-rise buildings and stuff like that. The apartment I had last time that had a full desk set up for remote working, office chair, everything. This was not something set up for a Mexican family. This was something set up to target foreigners to come over and work remotely.
While American dollars have contributed to recent developments in Mexico, there are some setbacks to the rapid expansion. Supply chain issues are rising as demand beats out supply.
It's making development increase, certainly, but it's also making development be less accessible to some of their most needed areas. Like in California, for example, where we have really a shortage of housing, which has actually led to the significant increase in prices in California. There's a similar bubble of lack of new construction in Mexico. And when that construction is focused on unattainable incomes for Mexican citizens, you're in some ways perpetuating the same bubble that we're seeing in California for housing, but now in Mexico as well.
In order to combat the number of low-income Californians leaving the state, affordable housing developments are beginning to make headway. In September of 2021, California's governor signed a series of bills to complement the California Comeback Plan, which invests $22 billion in affordable housing and homelessness. The wealthy are leaving California too. Some fear that mass departures by the state's billionaires and tech companies could reduce local and state tax revenues. Just 1% of California's top income earners are responsible for half of all income tax revenue. Those drops could have the potential to affect government services for years to come. And in Baja California, recent spikes in housing demand could cause the country to run out of supply.
I've talked to a lot of agents down here and folks that have been in this industry, 20 years or more. And a lot of them are all saying, this is the first time in the last 20 years that people are really significantly worried about our lack of inventory down here. There's a lot more things being built and trying to come up with things to sell to people.
As Mexico sees an influx of immigrants and increasing housing prices, there are mixed opinions about the future of current U.S.-Mexico migration trends.
But at the same time, it's bringing, opening up new businesses. It's driving money into Mexico. It's, it's creating tourism and money for small businesses. People are still going to be wanting to come down here more than ever. And I don't see prices going down anytime soon.
A good amount of the people that actually go and do this, try this, do return home within 90 days. Maybe your boss don't like this. Maybe your car registration don't like this. There is problems that exist for doing this. So the turnover rate for this is pretty quick.
For now, Californians are continuing to leave the state, and Mexico is welcoming them with open arms.
It's very expensive to raise a child in the U.S.
I knew it was going to be expensive, but I didn't know it was going to be that expensive.
The free market works well in many different sectors, but childcare is not one of them.
Sending an infant to daycare in many places across the country is actually more expensive than in-state public tuition to send them to college.
When we looked it up, it turned out our daughter's daycare was more than Stanford's tuition. We didn't really start to dig into it until we had a baby and I was on maternity leave, and then the numbers really started to hit home, and it was like, how are we going to do this?
Many Americans are struggling to make ends meet. More than 12.5 million children in the U.S. live in poverty. Even middle-class families are increasingly struggling to pay for everyday expenses.
We stopped saving any money altogether. We were living paycheck to paycheck every month to pay rent in the Bay Area and pay for childcare.
In this country, we don't have comprehensive policies. And so that means we are working with piecemeal programs to try to help people make ends meet.
I think the United States has just been very reluctant, very conservative when it comes to these kind of family policies.
Improving the social safety net, lowering the overall cost of raising children in this country is both the right thing to do for American families and the smart thing to do for our entire American economy.
The fundamental issue is not that we don't know what to do. We know that children need stability. The way to get to stability is making sure families have sufficient resources and sufficient time. If we know what to do, how do we pay for it?
Here's why it's so expensive to raise kids in the U.S. and which policies could help Americans.
My name is Janice. I am a mother of 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we live right outside San Francisco.
I'm Darren Geeter. I'm a producer for CBC. I recently just had my first kid, my daughter Alma. Basically, I've been on paternity leave for the last 8 weeks. So halfway through, everything is very expensive in New Jersey. People always warn you, like, there's going to be a ton of stuff that you need to buy for the baby, whether it comes with diapers or wipes. And we didn't necessarily understand how much we have to buy.
If we had had 2 kids in full-time daycare, it would have been a lot more than rent. So that's why it just absolutely wasn't an option. And when we looked at the numbers for full-time nannies in the San Francisco area, they all charge about $80,000 a year.
We don't have concrete plans of what we're going to do with childcare, because we know that childcare can range anywhere from $1,000 a month, or somewhere it could be as paying as a double rent.
The average family with at least one child under the age of 5 typically spends around 13% of the family's income on childcare, according to a September 2021 Treasury Department report. That's about 1 out of every $8. That's more than what the average household spends on groceries, and nearly double what the government considers affordable for low-income families.
Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, the median Black family with 2 kids was spending roughly 56% of their annual income on childcare, a bigger share than any other racial group. And of course, we know during COVID, for all families, childcare centers and school closures were forcing parents to pay for childcare in ways that they never had to before.
For over 20 years, the Economic Policy Institute has produced something called the Family Budget Calculator. And in that, we look at basic expenses across the country: housing, childcare if you have kids, healthcare, transportation, food, other incidentals like household items, and your taxes. One of the things we noticed when we were doing this about 4 or 5 years ago is that childcare became more expensive than rent in many places across the country.
The most recent report released by the Department of Agriculture in 2015 estimated that for a middle-income household with 2 parents and 2 children, it would cost more than $233,600 to raise a child from birth through age 17. And that's in 2015 dollars. With inflation, that number translates to almost $286,000 in 2022. The report calculated it would cost the hypothetical family of 4 anywhere from $9,330 to $23,380 per child in 1 year. This range depends on the age of the child and income of the parents. Adjusting for inflation, that range in 2022 would be between about $11,400 and $28,600. But adjusting for inflation may not be enough. Childcare costs have actually outpaced inflation. Childcare prices surpassed annual inflation by nearly 4 percentage points in 2020, and that was before the worst of the pandemic inflation woes.
And that data is based on middle-class, 2-parent households. Just think about what that cost looks like when we're talking about single parents, or if we're talking about families of color on the struggling end of the racial wealth gap in this country.
I'd say we're middle class for the area we're living in. I actually am not sure how some people get by living in the Bay Area that make less than my husband and I do. We cannot wait until next year because one of our children is going to public school next year, and we might finally be able to start saving some money again.
Families that are right on the poverty line on average, if they're white in this country, have $18,000 of net worth. Families at the poverty line, if they're Black in this country, on average have at or below $0 in net worth. Just think about what that $18,000 difference means to parents when their second grader falls off the monkey bars and they're facing unanticipated medical costs.
Policymakers acted very swiftly in the pandemic and enacted policies that had tangible, positive results for workers and their families.
We do a lot of family supports through the tax code, and sort of the most prominent example here is something called the child tax credit.
The child tax credit allows parents to deduct a certain amount of money from their taxes at the end of each year. That amount depends on several factors: household income, how many children someone has, and the age of the children.
The child tax credit, enacted in 1997 with broad bipartisan support, was enacted in response to slow wage growth, higher cost of living, and a growing tax burden for average households. It was enacted to help reduce the tax burden on families with children, to help reduce the cost of raising kids.
Congress temporarily expanded the policy during the pandemic.
The bill as amended is passed.
The tax credit was raised to $3,000 a year for children between 6 and 17 years old and jumped to $3,600 a year for children 5 and under.
And for at least half of the year, it was paid out monthly. So both a kind of substantial boost in value and this monthly payment. So you're not waiting till the end of, when you file taxes the next year to get it.
And that provided a solid safety net to try to help families really make ends meet during those tough times. And it helped reduce hunger in families, very tangible results of those kinds of programs.
In 2021 alone, the expanded child tax credit was estimated to lift 4.1 million children above the poverty line and to reduce the number of children in poverty by more than 40%.
People who have children, that's work that families are doing, and it's work that they're doing on behalf of all of us. So this is a way to try to support families doing that work that allows them to choose for themselves how best to spend the money to invest in their children.
The pandemic's expanded legislation expired in 2021. As of 2022, the tax credit is back to its pre-pandemic levels, which maxes out at $2,000 per child, with the parents of younger children receiving a larger subsidy.
It's kind of a way to subsidize or support parents, but it typically has not included very low-income parents. We've excluded parents who don't have earnings, parents with disabilities, or, for other reasons that aren't in the labor force.
From the time it was enacted until last year's temporary expansion, the child tax credit was actually not made available in full to 50% of Black children and families because their family's income were too low.
It's important to me, I think, that we have a child tax credit that is not connected to a work requirement. To me, the child tax credit is paying for the work of being a parent, which is work that benefits us all. To attach additional work requirements to that sort of undermines this intent of helping families in a way that makes sense for them.
There are two other policies that economists and other experts advocate for when it comes to helping families: subsidized childcare and paid family leave. These policies go hand in hand because paid family leave means parents can stay home and take care of their children themselves.
The U.S. is the only OECD country that does not have a federal paid leave program.
Less than a quarter of U.S. workers have access to paid family leave by their employer.
There is a law on the books at the federal level that requires employers to allow parents to take unpaid leave up to 12 weeks, as long as the private employer has 50 or more employees.
When it's unpaid, it's not really an option. It's not really a choice that many families can take across this country. And it's not just low-income families. There are many middle-income families that are living paycheck to paycheck that simply can't afford to take leave how it is now.
What we see is that Black families, Latino families, Native American families, workers are less likely to be able to afford unpaid leave from work than white workers. Again, reflecting and enhancing racial economic disparities across the board.
There are some states and localities that have passed paid family and medical leave, and that provides for paid parental leave as one component of that to make sure that workers actually have the option to take that leave.
Each state with paid family and medical leave sets its laws up differently, but typically the law requires employers to provide workers with up to 12 weeks of fully or partially paid leave per year. The programs are often funded by payroll taxes from workers, with some states also requiring employers to contribute.
Paternity leave for me was 16 weeks, and that's 4.
This is your brain when you're struggling to focus. And this is your brain when you're in the zone. But getting in the zone and staying there, that feels more like luck than something you can control. So that's why we made Brain FM. It's like a do not disturb setting for your mind, and it gets you focused in just 5 minutes. Using science and sound, Brain FM guides your brainwaves into an optimal state for productivity called neural phase locking, which lets different parts of your brain work together more easily. Compared to average music, Brain FM actually increases and sustains your focus over time, letting you stay in the zone for as long as you want. You can also use Brain FM for relaxation, meditation, and even sleep. But don't take our word for it. Join millions of others and try it yourself for free, and see what you get done with Brain FM.
President Biden tried to address all of these policies at the federal level with his Build Back Better infrastructure bill that he proposed even before he entered the White House.
The president doesn't talk a lot about the Build Back Better bill, but that was his proposal that included things like an expanded child tax credit, like a near universal child care program that would have capped the amount of income people had to pay toward child care. It included a paid leave type program, really included these big building blocks of a better family support program that ran into opposition from one key Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin in West Virginia.
One of the things that I think is important is that we think about rebalancing our investments toward children because it pays for itself. If we were to rebalance federal investments away from senior citizens and toward children, not only would raising a child be more affordable in the U.S., but the children would have sufficient resources. Their parents would be better able to think about how they want to spend their time, whether it's that extra hour at work or an extra hour playing with their kids. All of those things become possible if we rebalance federal spending toward kids.
We know that investing in our children has a multiplier effect. What it means for those children's families, what it means for those children in adulthood, and what it means for the entire economy just have incredible ripple effects. And so investing in children actually impacts Americans of all ages, in addition to our entire economy.
The boxes flying down the line at this 2.3 million square foot distribution center are sorted, scanned and labeled, then loaded into trucks destined for the shelves of the country's biggest retailer. Walmart employs more people than any other company in the world, and 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart. Yet when it comes to e-commerce, Amazon is the clear leader, with 39.5% of the market share compared to Walmart's 7%. And with the global pandemic helping shift shoppers' behavior for good, dominance in online shopping is now paramount. Last year, people spent more on Amazon than at Walmart for the first time. Now Walmart's got a new playbook and new leadership as it races to catch up.
We have 4,700 locations across the US, and if the store acts like a fulfillment center, we can send those items the shortest distance in the fastest time.
Over the past few years, Walmart's built more than 30 warehouses like this, some with robots and people, entirely dedicated to fulfilling online orders. Workers at stores are also picking and packing online orders as Walmart turns dozens of stores into micro-fulfillment centers. It's added membership program Walmart Plus to compete with Prime, invested heavily in local delivery programs in homes and with drones, and started packing and shipping orders for third-party sellers as it works to entice them to Walmart.com.
I'd say assortment is the linchpin to this plan, and then sellers are a means to get to assortment.
They're looking at Amazon's market share saying, how can we grow this market share? We need more sellers. We need more selection.
Customers trust us for food consumables, they trust us for general merchandise, but they're looking for every item that they could think of. We want to make sure that we're able to do that for them.
CNBC went to Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas for the first ever public interview with Walmart's new head of e-commerce, Tom Ward, to find out the truth behind his big plans for catching Amazon online. Walmart was founded in 1962 by Sam Walton, growing to nearly 2,000 stores by the time Jeff Bezos founded Amazon in 1994. Despite its in-store dominance, Walmart was notoriously slow to the e-commerce game, not launching its third-party marketplace until 2009. It didn't make real headway until 2016, when Walmart bought discount online retailer Jet.com for $3.3 billion, tapping founder Mark Lowry to lead e-commerce, where he stayed until last year. In 2018, it spent big to get into the booming online market in India with Flipkart, and also bought online fashion brands like Bonobos and Eloquii. Then in 2020, Walmart shut down Jet.com, although CEO Doug McMillon says he would buy it all over again.
You look at the trajectory of our business, it changed when we made that acquisition. The Walmart brand really has extended to reach all kinds of people, affluent customers, younger customers, urban customers. We were going to need a brand to be able to use to attract some of the brands that did not yet want to be in our stores.
Also in 2020, Walmart partnered with Shopify to bring thousands of mom and pop sellers to Walmart's marketplace. That's the term used to differentiate items sold by third-party sellers from the first-party merchandise bought and sold by Walmart. 2020 also saw the launch of Walmart Plus and Walmart Fulfillment Services to rival Fulfilled by Amazon, or FBA, but leveraging stores and their built-in workforce to keep costs low.
Walmart's definitely, doubling, tripling down on their e-commerce business, trying their best to take market share away from Amazon or catch up to them. The truth is, though, they still have a long ways to go.
Last year, Walmart opened up its marketplace to international sellers. This summer, Walmart Plus Weekend is happening for the first time, with exclusive online deals for members, just like Amazon's Prime Day. And in February, Tom Ward took over Walmart's e-commerce division.
The nearest Walmart to your customer is the one in their pocket. It's also the ultimate store. It should be an endless assortment. It should be completely, full of solutions for whatever customers are looking for. And increasingly, marketplace sellers really help us do that.
We went to a bustling conference for e-commerce sellers in Las Vegas in March that's usually dominated by Amazon chatter. For the first time in the Prosper Show's 7-year history, Walmart also had a major presence.
Because they're smart and they know that this show is where the sellers are. And they want to get a lot of more brands on the Walmart.com channel.
It's the only other platform that it could really be competition to Amazon.
Michael Lebar started selling on Walmart 7 years ago when he was just a sophomore in high school.
At first, my mom was not happy because my whole room was just a bunch of USPS boxes.
Now, Lebar says Walmart.com is his primary platform for his Spawn Fitness brand, which he says did about $3.5 million of sales on Walmart.com last year, compared to under $500,000 on Amazon.
On Walmart, our profit margins too are so good. And people are always like, oh, Walmart's price competitive, which you're right. Sometimes you're not able to charge as much, but on Amazon, you're spending so much more on advertising. You don't even realize you're down so much because of that.
The cost of advertising on Amazon has increased, but people are always going to do it because more than ever before, it seems, if you're not advertising on Amazon, you're not going to get seen.
As the leader, Amazon can charge sellers more for ads, seller account support, and fulfillment services. Jeray Buckley Cox used to work at Amazon and now helps lead Walmart Fulfillment Services, which launched in 2020. WFS hasn't yet raised prices, and unlike FBA, offers seller support for free.
Year over year, Walmart Fulfillment Services grew 500% in GMV. We add sellers every day. Our competitive advantage and what's drawing sellers into the program is the fact that they believe this is a marketplace that is built for them.
But for now, Walmart still has about 1/10 of the sellers and 1/10 the value of merchandise that Amazon has. Greg Mercer founded seller software company Jungle Scout, which tracks industry numbers with regular surveys of thousands of sellers.
The fact that there are significantly less sellers on Walmart, I think, creates less competition. And the result of that is the Walmart sellers typically have a more profitable business than what Amazon sellers do.
Surveys earlier this year found 95% of Walmart sellers turn a profit, compared to about 76% on Amazon.
5 years ago, Amazon sellers just wanted to be on Amazon. They didn't want to go anywhere else. But that story has changed. Most Amazon sellers that I talk to talk about how can I diversify more.
About a year ago, we estimated that there were 75,000 Walmart sellers. And over the past year, we've seen that number double to about 150,000 Walmart sellers today.
Lauren Stark runs business strategy for M-Design, one of the biggest home storage brands on Amazon, with a total of $310 million in online sales last year. M-Design started selling on Walmart in 2019 and started investing more there during the pandemic.
Because everyone was at home. So that's when we really ramped up our strategy to go onto different marketplaces, and specifically Walmart. Diversify the risk, diversify the reward as well, and reach more customers.
Stark says M-Design will likely do about $5 million in sales on Walmart this year, compared to $280 million on Amazon last year.
We are seeing, really nice increases year over year on Walmart.
But as Walmart's third-party assortment grows, so too does the risk for bad actors, like MPOW and Aki, two huge electronics sellers doing nearly
by reviews.
Walmart says it looked into the allegations and didn't find the same behavior from MPOW and Aki on its site. As it works to boost selection, Walmart also opened its marketplace up to international sellers last year.
We know that Amazon had a big crackdown last summer on fake reviews. I think it primarily impacted Chinese sellers the most. That, combined with Walmart allowing international sellers, we saw like a huge uptick in the percent of Chinese sellers on Walmart.
Still, sellers say Walmart remains more stringent than Amazon when it comes to approving new sellers.
We're really proud of the track record of having high standards for sellers to get vetted before they get on the program, and we're going to continue that.
Another big way Walmart is enticing sellers, which Amazon can't match, is the opportunity to get products onto thousands of brick-and-mortar shelves.
Because each store has to get so many cases in stock. I mean, it's like game over. If you're just like a private label seller, to be able to have your product in Walmart stores is like a holy grail.
Our product was like at one point the #1 in the category on Walmart.com. So we got an email from a Walmart buyer being like, would you be interested in more talks?
This year, for the first time, Walmart.com sellers were given first exclusive access to a program called Open Call, where sellers pitch their products for space on Walmart store shelves. Some 2,000 sellers applied.
We've got a real mission to increase assortment. So it just made sense that when sellers are bringing high quality assortment, we want to make that available to our customers in our stores or online.
Walmart's huge number of stores also makes it the undisputed king in grocery. Amazon bought Whole Foods in 2017 and is trying to disrupt the space by making 2 of them entirely cashierless. But Amazon.com and Whole Foods each accounted for less than 1.5% of the grocery market, compared to Walmart's 18%. Grocery is less profitable than general merchandise, but the real power play is for Walmart to get customers to fill their virtual baskets with a mix of grocery, general merchandise, and third-party items.
Maybe you're shopping for only a Walmart grocery store product, but at least the traffic is there and it is heavy and a lot more eyeballs on your products now.
Despite big upward trends during the pandemic, both Walmart and Amazon shares fell sharply after Q1 earnings were reported, as supply chain issues and increasing costs cut into profits. But Walmart's long-standing reputation as a leader in low prices brings an advantage right now as customers look for deals with inflation at a new 40-year high.
To save you even more. Always low prices, always Walmart.
As part of Walmart's strategy to unite more parts of its vast retail empire, it recently combined what used to be 2 separate apps, one for Walmart's own goods, primarily grocery, and another for its third-party marketplace products.
And wherever there's friction,
it's 2-hour grocery delivery in 2,000-plus cities, access to Prime Day deals and Amazon's entertainment branch, Prime Video, Amazon Music, Prime Reading, Prime Gaming, and Amazon Photos. Meanwhile, Walmart Plus members pay $98 a year for benefits like free same-day delivery from stores, free shipping on Walmart's own merchandise, cashierless scan-and-go shopping at some stores, and exclusive access to big sales events like Walmart Plus Weekend happening June 2nd to 5th this year. And amid record-high gas prices, Walmart just added extra fuel discounts for its Plus members, who now get between 5 and 10 cents off not only at Walmart's own pumps, but at some 14,000 participating stations, including Exxon, Mobil, Murphy, and Sam's Club. Walmart is also using its stores, and specifically their proximity to customers, as an edge, making big investments in speedy local delivery programs.
People are coming to us for burgers and hot dogs, but they can buy a brand new smoker. They can get a whole new swim set outfit. They can get all of that under one roof, in one application, in one place, and we can fulfill it for them with great speed thanks to our footprint.
Last year, Walmart launched Express Delivery for Walmart's own merchandise that can reach your door in 2 hours or less for a $10 fee, with an additional fee of at least $7.95 for non-Walmart Plus members. This doesn't include marketplace items, but Ward says it drives traffic for those as well.
We can say to a customer, hey, add these items that you want this evening, but if you want that very specific item, we can bring you that really quickly as well.
Walmart has been ramping its logistics operations since at least 2017, building 31 separate fulfillment centers devoted to e-commerce, and investing big in robotic e-commerce fulfillment, following Amazon's lead. Also like Amazon, Walmart has independent drivers, what it calls its Spark network, who handle much of the cumbersome, expensive last-mile delivery.
We can activate drivers to come and collect items and deliver them to our customer. But as the density grows, the cost comes down.
So much so that last year, Walmart started delivering goods for other retailers in a program it calls Go Local.
We've announced some really exciting clients like the Home Depot and the Chico's and others, including small and medium businesses. And what we're seeing is as they share in our last mile capabilities, our density increases and the cost for both of us go down.
In Scottsdale, Arizona, Ward says Walmart's completed 5,000 deliveries with Cruise autonomous vehicles.
And this vehicle turns up like magic outside and they can grab it out of the back seat. And then increasingly they can put their return in the back seat and send the car to the supercenter.
Walmart also just announced it's expanding drone delivery line and picking up curbside, a benefit Amazon can't rival.
In some of these other areas where Amazon Prime doesn't have like the 2 and 3, 4 hour delivery, but there's a Walmart store nearby, you could be living in South Dakota or something and you can get your product in 2 or 3 hours, whereas on Amazon for Prime, it might take even more than 2 days.
While you can't currently pick up third-party purchases at Walmart stores, Buckley Cox says items shipped with WFS will soon be able to be forwarded to stores for possible same-day pickup or delivery. And while Amazon delivers groceries to doorsteps and some items inside doors and garages, Walmart has a unique delivery program straight into your fridge for $19.95 a month.
It is so good inside the garage or the residence without this on.
Then bringing it inside people's homes and putting it away in the refrigerator. Trusting a stranger to enter your home may sound wild, but the program has been working well enough that Walmart is rapidly expanding it to reach 30 million homes.
All of our associates wear cameras on their vest, and every part of the delivery is recorded. They can't actually access your home until we confirm that their camera is turned on and working. And so as a customer, if you place an order and you are curious, you can watch the full experience.
In-home associates will also take some returns back to Walmart for customers. And Walmart is expanding the program to include alcohol delivery and other highly requested services it's not ready to disclose.
Hey, you gotta sit for me. There you go.
And so they're like, oh my gosh, you're here, like, can you walk the dog? Like, can you take out the trash? It's like, how else can you help me?
While marketplace purchases can't currently be delivered in-home, it's another way for Walmart to build loyalty.
In-home offers a unique entry point into Walmart for a lot of our customers because we have pretty distinguishable offering on the market. And now they're on our website and they're shopping for groceries, but they're seeing other things they might want to buy. They're seeing things available in Marketplace. There are things that they would never expect to see at Walmart. And so now we have them as a loyal customer in a much more expansive and much stickier way than we would have expected.
You know, they're not going to catch up and be 50% market share next year. But if they continue to do the things that they're doing, gradually they will continue to eat more and more market share, I believe.
I definitely feel like we got a steal with our apartment, especially in London. I don't know many people who have, this much square footage and would pay this little. We have a garden, we have Greenwich Park next door, easy connection to central London. It's an amazing space. We get lots of natural light, a home office space, like just so much for the little amount that we pay. Hi, welcome to my London flat. My name is Nancy. I'm 31 years old. I live in a 2-bedroom with study apartment in beautiful London with my husband. And we pay £1,750 a month in rent, which roughly translates to $2,140 US. My husband and I were both originally from Canada. We lived in Toronto and we ended up in London because I've always wanted to leave Canada and come to Europe. So I actually moved here in 2017 to study law while my husband moved to Paris for his MBA, and then we decided between Paris and London ended up being the winner. We currently live in the beautiful royal borough of Greenwich. It's one of 4 royal boroughs in London, and it's located in southeast London. We chose Greenwich because it has great running trails, and my husband and I are both runners. It's very dog friendly. We're hoping to get a dog soon. There's Greenwich Park next door to us, which has amazing views of Canary Wharf and central London. And it's also very close to family. It was built in 1850 and belonged to some sort of lord in London, and it's an amazing building. It has 4 flats. Essentially, each floor occupies 1 flat. I love it because it's my style of apartment. It's old, but it's very charming. It has its little annoyances. Like, for example, we can't open some of the windows in the living room, and we can't have any handyman come look at it. Council tax, for those who don't know, is a fee that everyone has to pay whether you own a home or you're renting a home. And it helps to cover things like rubbish collection, schools, police force, like just a bunch of things to maintain your council, which in America would be like your neighborhood. So we're joining the millions of other people in the UK who will be struggling with super high utilities bill. An estate agent who I had worked with before, she reached out to me via email and said, hey, I know that your lease is about to end currently and I have a great place that just hit the market and I think you should look at it. As soon as I came in and I saw the space, I knew it was ours because our main criteria was we wanted a bigger space than what we had previously, and we also wanted outdoor space, and this had everything. So it felt like love at first sight. Immediately when we got back home, I emailed the estate agent and I told her I really want this flat. And she said to me, you know, the competition is really high, so why don't you write a letter to the landlord with your offer? So that's what we did, and explained that this is where, you know, my husband and I would like to live until we...
Big dreams start small. At GoDaddy, we help you take that first
and so on. So because we moved in the middle of 2021 when the pandemic was still rife, we definitely scored a better deal on the flat and we were able to negotiate the price better. So before we moved in, we had to pay first month's rent. And then we also had to pay a security deposit, which was about 5 weeks rent, and the total was $4,610 US. So when we moved into this flat, it was completely empty. So we got a new sofa from Made, which is very popular here in the UK. We had to get new desks, new dining table, new everything. But luckily, Facebook Marketplace came in handy for us and helped, you know, cut down some of the costs. So when you walk into our apartment, you are greeted by a beautiful entryway. We have an amazing skylight that lets in so much natural light during the day. This is the toilet, quite small, and it's far from everything else in the flat. It's right in the entryway. And every time in the middle of the night, if you need to use a toilet, you have to walk all the way across the flat, which I hate. This is the hallway. I love this space. It's very bright. I can't wait to fill it with amazing photos and artwork. And on this side, the first thing you see when you go in is my office. I work here every single day. My desk was built for me by a friend. I love all the colors. I didn't want a beige space, so I did request permission to paint my office pink because I wanted it to be very colorful. Right across the office is our spare room. It's currently being occupied by a teenage boy. My husband's cousin is staying with us for a little bit. I love it because of the amount of storage space that we have. Right across from the spare room is one of my favorite spaces in the entire flat, our kitchen. I love how big and spacious it is. The walls with this beautiful lemon Sicilian wallpaper. We did some contact paper on the counter space. We changed the shelves here. A friend of mine did those as well. It's good to have handy friends. I love this space, and this table is actually my favorite find in the entire flat. It was $2,600 originally, and we got it for £200 off Facebook Marketplace, and I love it. This cabinet, we actually DIY'd it. We got it from eBay. It was brown and another weird color, and we changed it to black, changed the handles as well, and I think it looks super stylish and fits right in here. Off the dining room, we have my ultimate favorite space in the entire house. I love it because of how light-filled it is. Every morning in the summer, usually around like 5 a.m., I come in and open the windows. I'm an early riser. My husband actually works from this space. This is his little home office setup. which is fine because he only works from home maybe like 2-3 times a week, so he doesn't need a closed office space like me. We have his little plant. He wanted to be a plant dad all by his lonesome. And my favorite piece of furniture here is our sofa, which we got from made.com. And I love how big it is. We can fit like so many people on here. And it's great to just lounge, watch Love Island or any other TV show or movie. And over here are these shelves that were actually already in the flat when we moved in. My husband is a fan of buying books that he doesn't read, so he collects them. And off the dining room, we have our master bedroom. And my favorite thing about this apartment is how much closet space we have. So we actually each get a closet. We get a top one and a bottom one. And this is a built-in vanity area. It was actually here when we moved in, and I just had to buy this little mirror and pop this chair in. And this is where I get ready every single morning. And it also just feels very 1850s, which I love. So off our bedroom is our utility room, which is not very pretty. It feels very like cave dungeony. So we kind of just use it to store everything. And we also have our dryer, which is a luxury in London. Another room that we have off the dining is our shower room, which is very odd because there's so much room and there could have been enough space to add a toilet, but they've decided not to do that. So it's just a room with our shower. So one creepy thing that we have in our flat is like some sort of dungeon under the step in the entryway. We don't go in there. My husband has gone in there once to make sure that it was walled off and that nobody would actually be coming through the house in the middle of the night. I don't really want to dig deeper to find out because I don't want to be afraid to be in my own home, but that's a fun fact about our apartment, and it's very weird. So to get to our garden, unfortunately, we have to leave through the front door and walk all the way across the property to the back. So I'll take you. We're almost there. So this is our garden or backyard. I love how spacious it is. It's perfect for hosting like barbecues or any type of summer event. And one thing that we actually get as a perk in our apartment is a garage, and our garage is that one there in the corner. And it's great because no one really uses the garden, so we kind of have it to ourselves most of the time. Most people use it, just to park their cars. So it's nice to have this space here out. And then we also have Greenwich Park that is literally across like a stone throw away. So it's nice to have the option between hanging out here or in the park. I think we'll be in this apartment for probably another year or two, as our goal is to buy our own home soon. At the moment, with inflation, I don't think it's a good moment to buy in London because interest rates are pretty high. Hopefully in the next year or two, things would calm down a little bit because it's always nice to kind of own a little piece of land for yourself. We've decided to make London a permanent home because it's, the hub for everything. We have family in Nigeria, we have family in Canada, so from London we can easily travel to both countries in just under 7 hours. My role is very global, so I travel everywhere from the United States to the Middle East, Asia, so it's very easy to do that from London. It would be much harder to do that from Toronto. And we also like that London has some of the world's best schools, whether it's primary school, secondary school, universities. The weather is great. As much as, British people tend to complain, coming from Canada when it's like minus 15 degrees most of the year, we don't mind the London weather. And fun fact, Paris is actually wetter and gloomier than London.
Wait, is this real? Is he at 45,000 in crypto? Insane. Hi, I'm Lauren Simmons. I'm the Wolfette of Wall Street, and I'm going to be reacting to a video of living on $150,000 a year in LA. Alrighty, I'm excited to dive in. Let's get started.
My name is Terzel Ron. I am 25 years old. I make about $150,000 a year, and I live in Los Angeles, California.
that is the way to do it. You should have multiple streams of income. If you think you're going to get your salary off of doing one thing, you are grandly mistaken. And I think Gen Zers have definitely found the secret sauce because they have 5,001 jobs, which is amazing.
So I do work every single day, and I have been working every single day for probably 5 years now. I love it.
Going can be great, especially when you're building an empire, but you also want to just take a breath and be present in the moment and enjoy everything that you're building in the process.
I grew up in a family of 6, and we were all illegal immigrants, so money was not something that we had a lot of access to, and economically things were rough growing up. I started to really realize that school was the way to achieve more financial success later down the road.
As someone who has a very similar story as his, I think the appreciation that you can have with life and, you know, building an American dream and making a salary where you can be comfortable is rewarding when you actually see it. To get there, there are a lot of sacrifices that have to be made, and to have had 3 jobs while in high school is insane. And where he's at today, I think that that's super motivating.
Sometimes it was very hard in terms of eating, in terms of sleeping. I wouldn't end up leaving school until about 6 or 7 p.m. to get back home around 10. And I had to wake up at 5 to leave at 6 the next day.
That was already preparing him for working in any kind of environment, especially when we're talking about entertainment, hosting, writing. The hours are crazy. You never really know what your hours are. I believe that life gives us little cookie crumbles towards our future. And for him, he was doing this in high school, that once he became an adult and started doing his own thing, this was a lot more easier than most people because he already had been preparing for this earlier on.
Most of my expenses with my girlfriend are split 50-50, such as the rent, but we do take different bills. I'm more than happy to pay the entire balance. However, my girlfriend really insists on paying half.
The bulk of his $8,947 is going to savings and investments, which is really nice. I mean, I don't see anything else that he could really cut back on. He's doing a pretty good job. Drizel owes $5,000 in federal student loans, but his payments were paused due to COVID. I think everyone is a little bit up in the air of what's going to happen with Biden. Is he going to cancel the $10,000? Of course, if he does cancel $10,000, then he won't even have to look towards his $5,000. And honestly, that could be, you know, $5,000 that he can put towards something else.
Growing up, I had a lot of health issues, and so did my mom. And seeing these health issues really bothered me and made me realize the importance of having health insurance. I actually grew up missing a tooth in front of my mouth until I was 18, until I was a freshman at NYU. And so I always wanted braces. My family never had money for braces, and I sort of realized that I needed to get that money myself.
Drizel and I like twin flames because, oh my goodness, that's kind of like my story. My family could not afford to get me braces, and if you look at my old CNBC videos, you'll see.
So I would say that I save about $4,000 to $6,000 a month.
Wait, is this real? Is he at $45,000 in crypto? Insane. He has a total of $71,000 saved, which is amazing on his salary. I just would